You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, your source for all things horror. Your ears are not deceiving you either. This is your host, Lester Blosser, and your other host, Mr. Stephen White.
Hey!
We are back, guys.
We're
We are back. You know, Stephen finished his mission to get the Necronomicon and use it to destroy the Upside Down. I don't know if they're going to actually show that because they need the series to keep going.
They do.
And as Stephen told you before, Mickey Mouse was up to some shady shit, and I took care of that. He was going to use the Marvel characters to destroy Bugs Bunny and all them, because, you know, they just don't want to join Mickey Mouse.
Yeah,
They don't want to be part of Disney.
I mean, we've all heard the kerfuffle over there at WB right now. So I mean, there's truth to it. Come on, I mean, you know he's not lying.
I think what it really was Mickey really wanted to figure out what the hell was going on with Flash.
Yeah,
That's really what it was. But
we all want to know.
we're not going to get into all of that all of that fun stuff. But we figured we'd do something kind of interesting today. I actually was going to just kind of go off the rails with today's episode, but Stephen had been listening to another podcast, and it kind of gave him some inspiration for a idea that we could talk about today on the show. So, Stephen, I'll let you fill the people in on what you heard, where you heard it, and kind of what we're going to do today. So,
right.
Go ahead.
Well, last week, if you recall, as I was talking to my wife Katrina, we were talking about the Child's Play franchise, and I mentioned that where that kind of conversation was inspired from is that I had been listening to a podcast, another horror-themed podcast called With Gorley and Rust, where they go through and talk about horror franchise movies. They've done Friday the 13th, they've done Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Alien, Predator. They've done a run of Stephen King films, and now they're doing Child's Play. And as they were having a conversation, and I don't think I brought this up last week because it entered my head, and then when I thought about it, I was like, no, I'm going to hold on to that one because that's a topic for another time, and I didn't want to spoil that. But in their assessment of Bride of Chucky, they had kind of made this general assumption based on the franchises they had watched, and said, have you noticed that the fourth film in these long-running franchises seem to be good? Like they're like the most solid entry out of the series. Maybe not more so of the original, but it's always a solid entry. And I started thinking about it and the ones they were naming, and I was like, good point. But then upon further reflection, I was like, but I don't think that's accurate. So I thought it would be fun to kind of deconstruct their theory that every fourth film is a solid entry in a horror franchise. And I will just say horror franchise. I know we could possibly look into other franchises, but that's not what we do. We're going to stick to horror because there's plenty of horror out there. And I have kind of jotted down ones that I could remember. In fact, as I'm sitting here talking, another one just came to mind. So I'm going to jot it down too. And we'll just kind of look through. I have good ones, or again, this is all subjective, so you may disagree with us.
And let us know if you do.
Yes. The list I have are ones that I think are good, ones that I think are bad, and then another list of ones that I'm kind of putting in a maybe pile that you may like, you may dislike. I'm kind of on the fence with because I've either never seen it or I am indifferent to it. I'm just like, yeah, it's a movie. I'm not going to say good or bad. It's a movie. I'm entertained by it. So, with that said, let's talk about the good. Because I
Okay.
think that would be a great place to start. The ones that they had mentioned, and we can explain why we think these are good. And I feel like we could just kind of, nitpick away at them a little bit. I want to start with this one because it might seem like an odd choice to put in the good pile, but I think this is why it's worth discussing. Friday the 13th Part 4 is highly regarded, I think, as one of the better Friday entries. I know everyone will probably gravitate towards 6 as the ultimate, the favorite. But there's something about 4 that just works, even though it's really emulating the original, the first 3. You got campers or people out on the lake, and then Jason, and I know his mom was the first one or whatever, but Jason kills the kids, and boom, done. Same formula. We're still following the same storyline that had been going on from the other movies. So, same formula, but it works so much better for some reason. And maybe it's the simplistic nature of it. Maybe it's the introduction, or you have more compelling characters like Tommy Jarvis and his family. It could be Crispin Glover dancing. I don't know, but there's just something good about it. I personally think it's the guy who played Jason, Ted White, who found some sort of, I won't say he was Kane Hodder or anything, but there was something about the way he played Jason that seemed more animalistic.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, he was on a mission. He knew what he was after. He was going for it. There was no lumbering. There was no trying to figure out what he was doing. It was just like kill. And he was just on point with everything that he did. And I feel like you get that in his performance. There's no slow lumbering walks. It's just, I'm going after you. He's hustling, But it's a minor thing, but it's a good movie. I mean, do you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, even before we started recording, we kind of chit-chatted a little bit, and I had mentioned it. Friday the 13th is one of those movies, though, the entire series that, to me, even if you find the flaws in the film, I think that a lot of the people that go into that movie series and they enjoy it, yes, they want characters that they can connect with to a degree and everything like that. But let's be real. A lot of Friday the 13th, and I heard this on the last show you did, boobs, drugs, and murder.
Mm-hmm.
And having a good Jason, I think, is what really adds to it all. To bring up something from another film real quick, but it kind of ties into this and ties into what you said. I saw an interview from the gentleman that played the Predator in the new Prey movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that playing a character that doesn't talk is extremely difficult because you have to communicate with your movements. You have to communicate with your body. So to have a character that doesn't talk show some kind of like anger or emotion of any kind through their movements, I think that adds to the whole film. And like you said, he's no Kane Hodder because Kane Hodder added some things to Jason that people are used to. But his performance in that, the way that Jason is so just kill, and so aggressive, it just makes the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And I think that's where it kind of led it into, because I wouldn't say that there was a bad performance out of any of the actors, because I would say it was almost like a progression or an evolution of trying to find who Jason is. Each stuntman did their own kind of take on it, but I never felt like there was a bad entry or one that just felt out of place. It was, as I said, evolutionary. You just saw him kind of turn into something different. And then even if you go from 2 to 4 and you see how that kind of evolved, you can forgive 5 because that's not Jason. And then you go back to 6, and then now he's a new Jason, so then that's an entirely new take, because now he has to move differently, he has to be different because he's more zombified, and then move into Kane Hodder, and he nails it from that point on.
And real quick, kind of referring back to the film where it's not Jason that's the killer. It's someone posing as him. Friday the 13th tried something different. A lot of horror franchises, great horror franchises that we all love, have done that. Friday the 13th did it. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 did that. Halloween, Season of the Witch. These are all films that they tried to do something a little different. And at the time, it didn't necessarily work. But when you go back now and you watch it, it's something that you can appreciate.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could do a whole show on that subject on its own. But just something interesting I kind of wanted to add to that was all. So
I mean, even with Halloween 3, and I won't go too deep into this, yeah, I'll agree. It's a movie that I had avoided for so long because it didn't involve Michael Myers. And, people said don't look at it like a Halloween film. Just take it at face value. It's a movie about Halloween and give it a watch. And it was a hard watch the first time through because I just had this mental block. But I also feel if I watch it more, I will grow to appreciate it more because I know it's well appreciated. It's not a bad movie. I know it's not a bad movie. It's just in my head, I was like, this is not Halloween, and I couldn't turn that off. And it's difficult because you're associating it with something and you just got to take that little piece out and toss it aside. I mean, I have it on 4K for Christ's sake. I bought the set, so I'm committed to it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go in with an open mind for certain films, and it's hard to do, especially when you've grown to love films for a certain character or things like that. It sounds crazy, but these psycho killers kind of become a family name among people. They really do,
And that's why you have to keep them likable, because the moment you turn them into something horrendous or unlikable, then the appeal's gone. Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010.
Even the bad guy has to have something about him.
Hell, using Katrina's shit. Where's my brain? The words I'm looking for. Using Katrina's example from last week, Puppet Master. We all love the puppets, and then you do this remake and you turn them into just vicious, mean, just horrible little shits, and I don't like the puppets anymore.
And
I love the puppets.
It's all for shock value anymore. Let's make them as wicked and evil as possible because heaven forbid somebody kind of likes the bad guy. I mean,
Who knew? So do you want to stick with good movies, or do you want to kind of bounce between, because I think we can kind of touch on a few here and there within.
Well, I kind of have one, and you might have it on your list. Because I'll be honest, when we kind of discussed this idea last night, I was not as prepared as I would have hoped to have been. I have a few movies. I know that you probably have some more than I do. But I have one. It's kind of a creature feature, in a sense. You might have it on your list. I don't know where you have it on your list. Okay. It's sort of a guilty pleasure of mine. I like it for what it is, though. Alien Resurrection.
Okay. I actually have it in the undecided pile.
Okay.
Because I know it feels more reviled in the public consciousness. When people talk about it, it's like, well, that's the weak entry. No one likes that one. I have fun with it.
And that was my thing with it. just like I had said and we just talked about, every franchise does the one movie that's really weird. And Alien just saved it for one of their final movies. But for what it is, I thought it was a very original idea. And to me, what they did in it was extremely twisted. And I think that's what made me come to respect that movie.
Yeah.
It was scary enough that, all these people wanted to weaponize the aliens and everything. But for them to clone Ripley and turn her into this like alien human hybrid, that was just mind-blowing at the time. You know, because when I watched them, all of the originals and everything were already out. So I watched them boom, 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 all back to back. You know, and it was crazy to me to see everything Ripley went through, and then, you know, Ripley dies at the end of 3. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Alien, which, if you're listening to this, I hope you've seen Alien.
It's old enough, people, come on.
Yeah, like, but, you know, when she jumps, you know, when she falls back and she's holding the alien queen that burst out of her chest in 3 into the, you know, the molten metal, and she's done. You're like, oh my God, it's over. And then they hit you with this resurrection, and you're like, okay, well, what's going on here? And you see what they've done. I'm sorry, but that was a ballsy move for them to be like, we're going to make a clone of Ripley. She's going to have Ripley's memories. She's going to know how to kill these aliens. But she's going to have the acidic blood. She's going to have the amped up strength and everything because she has alien DNA in her as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a ballsy move. And I thought it worked really well. Is the movie over the top sometimes and a little just, what the hell? Yes. Yes, it is. But for what it is, I think it's fantastic. And I think it has 2 really, well, technically I would say 3 really wonderful scenes that still stick out to me today. And those 3 scenes are when Ripley is in the lab and she sees the failed clone that is all mutated and gross looking, and it wants her to kill it. You know, that's what it wants. So she does. The scene where we find out that now the queen alien can give live birth, and she gives birth to that alien human looking thing, which, I'm sorry, even to this day I will say that thing looked cool as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, when she uses her blood to get the hole in the shuttle, and it sucks the alien up through it.
Yeah.
I will never forget those 3 scenes. Like, I love those scenes, and to me, it was a solid entry. Was it a different kind of movie? I think so. But I would definitely put it toward the list of 4th entries that I thought were actually really well done. But I think that's kind of a hidden gem. At the time when it come out, people were expecting a certain type of alien movie. They did something different. And I think that's why it got the hate that it did not deserve.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it?
Doing something different is always kind of a hit or miss. It's where I'll stand with The Last Jedi. That's why I praise it and I hold it up on a pedestal, is because they did everything that I expected would happen in that film. They went right the opposite, and I respected the hell out of them for it, because they did not do what I was expecting, because I expected things in the first one, and then they said, no, everything that you say, that's what you're going to do, I'm going to go this way. And I'm like, thank you for doing something absolutely different. So that's why I respect that. And, I respect this one the same way. Like you said, they were doing something different. It wasn't just retreading the same ground. You cannot deny it has a solid cast.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about character actors out the wazoo. Not only do you have Sigourney Weaver coming back, and then you get Winona Ryder right there on her coattails, and they go, I mean, they pair perfectly. But then you've got Ron Perlman, Michael Wincott, Brad Dourif has a cameo. You can't beat it. It's a solid cast.
Yeah.
So I give it a lot of credit just for that alone. I think keeps it entertaining, because a lesser cast, I guess it could have been bogged down. It could have been a hard watch, but that cast is solid.
And
every day of the week.
And I think they realized that. I think they got a star-studded cast because they knew that it might be something that people might not necessarily gravitate toward. But if you have a good cast and you can tell the cast is having a good time with it, then I think it's worth it. And I thought that the cast, looked like they were having a great time performing together. So I would put that on a list of a 4th entry that I think is solid anyways. So.
Okay. And I'm with you on that. So decidedly, between the two of us, I guess we can put it in our good pile. Since
All right.
I had that in my undecided. So see, there you go. What do I want to talk about next? All right, I'll pick a bad one.
Okay.
And I feel like this one is it's no shocker, no surprise. I just want to throw it out there and get it out of the way because, this movie.
I'm excited now.
Jaws 4 is a movie that I remember growing up watching, and as a child, I thought it was amazing because why wouldn't you? It just seems cartoonish now. So a child would watch it and be like, man, this is amazing. Look at that shark. Look at him go, man. He's awesome. And then as I've grown older, I watch it and I get angry. I get angry because I see the potential of a fantastic movie in there that they squandered for some ludicrous plot about a psychic shark. And I've even heard, well, there's a voodoo curse. Do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Okay, so it's either a psychic shark or a voodoo curse shark. It's equally ludicrous no matter which way you spin it. Furthermore, the story that should have been told for this movie, and I know it might have been a little too deep for a Jaws film, but hear me out. You brought back Ellen Brody, the woman who had to watch her husband fight a shark twice, attack her sons more than once, and when her son dies, you could have her implant this thought. It was the shark again. And everything that happens around is in her head. And it's all in her head. Because she thinks this shark is coming back to kill them all. And maybe she loses it. Maybe the entire movie is a dream. And that might piss people off. But you know what? It would make sense by the end as to why everything was ludicrous.
Yeah, true.
And you could be like, holy shit. She just lost her marbles because she lost her son in an accident in the bay. And her immediate thought was shark. And it didn't have to be a shark. Or it could have been a coincidence that it was a shark. I don't think it needed to be a shark, but still. To me, it would have just been fantastic that way. Because you're saying that the trauma caught up to her in such a way that it really it broke her once her son died. And I think it would be highly regarded in that way if it had been presented as such. But again,
I can see that.
I understand it might have gone over most people's heads because that's a little too sophisticated. But man, you can't tell me that would have been. It would have just helped the plot so much. Just at the end, it was all in her head. She was in an asylum or something because she just lost it. Yeah. I would have been like, you know what? Sure, I'm in now. But they didn't, and it's a fucking cartoonish. It's so terrible when you see where it started and where it ends.
Yeah.
And I want them to make another Jaws movie just so that's not the last one. You know,
my thing with Jaws is the same thing with any movie where an animal is going crazy or or is extremely dangerous. It's we talked about it not too long ago. Crawl, that's the name of it. I had to think for a minute. Crawl is a fantastic film.
Yeah.
Because of how, as crazy as it sounds, how realistic that is.
Yeah.
Just like the first Jaws, which fun fact, Quentin Tarantino actually considers Jaws the greatest movie of all time.
And I think a lot of people do.
And the reason is the pacing and the realism of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like what you're saying, with the fourth one, they kind of get away from that more realistic aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the problem lies. The original Jaws was great at building suspense. You barely saw the shark. But it put the fear into you that, what if I was out in the water and there really was a man-eater out there that big?
Yeah.
That to me, that would be terrifying. And, if they did another Jaws, I would love it if it was something along the lines of, Jaws was a shark, Sharks out in the wild, they breed, they have baby sharks. Why can't Jaws have descendants that might not be bigger than the shark was? And I would love if they mixed it up a little bit. What instead of one shark, there were two sharks?
Yeah.
And
we kind of got that in 3, but they were never together.
Yeah. And like, what if at the end, instead of the one shark attacking the boat, you got two sharks attacking this boat, and, they have to take these two sharks out. I mean, it's just like the movie, I think it's called 47 Meters Down.
Yeah.
Not a bad movie. It has its flaws, but shark movies in general anymore, unless it's like, the movie The Meg, which is just completely out there,
shit.
But it's fun because it's gonna, it's a giant shark. It's gonna be different. But, adding that realism to it, I think, is what makes it a good film, especially with like animal films and things like that. The original shark, the original shark in Jaws, just a giant shark that was a man-eater. You make all these sequels. Jaws had some pretty solid sequels for what they were, but I get where you're coming from with the fourth. They went off the rails, and they could have justified it, like you said. They could have justified it and made it that somebody was having a nervous breakdown or anything else, but they didn't. Yeah,
because in the movie, she's dealing with trauma the entire time. You have these moments, and I think that's what makes me so angry about it, is they didn't go hard one way or the other. They're in this weird limbo section to where everything involving the shark is ludicrous, but when you stick with Ellen Brody, you see the trauma she's going through. You see the pain she's in because she lost her husband, she's lost her son, and she's grieving. So to have this thought that, oh my God, the shark has returned and he's going to kill my family, and why would she not have this traumatic thought, having seen it time and again? This would break someone, and I feel like they don't explore her trauma as much as they should, because you have these real human moments that work in that movie so well, but it's so undercut by the ludicrousness of the creature feature. They could not lean one way or the other. And to even show that it could be done, go back to Jaws. There was a moment in there that seems so out of place in the film, but it pays off in dividends later on. And it's the scene where Brody's sitting at the table pondering, and then his son is sitting there watching and copying him. And it does not, in all honesty, in any movie today, that scene would have been cut, because it's too slow, it's pacing, it's bad, it's stupid. But it's a human moment with him. He's had a hard day. He's just, and then his son just brightens his day, just a little glimmer of hope, and then you just move along to the next scene. There's nothing else to it, but it's such a humanizing moment. It's something you need.
Yeah, and speaking of the human moments and things like that. Say what you will about The Walking Dead, the TV series. I'm not gonna say here or there about it, because it's gone on for a long time and everything. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that made that show so interesting when it first came out is, yes, they had over the top gore, over the top violence, but they never lost the humanity in it.
Yeah,
and that to me was one of the things about the show that was fantastic. You would grow to love a character only for that character to get torn apart.
Yeah.
And
that's the best way to go about it, because when you have a character that you're not connecting to and they just die, you don't care. I know that might sound cold, but in the context of a fictional narrative, if you don't have that connection, like, I'll be honest with you, I hate to go back to Star Wars, but just as a good example, I did not know how I was going to react when Han Solo died. Another spoiler for an older movie. But when that moment happened, I got choked up. And I did, like, it was like an involuntary reaction because in the back of my head, I was expecting it to happen. But to see it happen, you're just like, oh my God. And it felt like you were losing a friend. This is somebody that I grew up with. I know it was only for 3 movies, but you had that connection to the character.
Yeah.
So, yes, growing your characters, getting to know them, getting to like them, to love them, that's important. If you don't do that, then killing them off, what does it matter? It's just like, it's another body. Who cares?
Well, and to bring up Mr. Han Solo, to bring up Harrison Ford again, that's why I'm kind of dreading this new Indiana Jones movie that's coming out. Because Harrison Ford's one of those actors, he a lot of these characters that he's played, he's like, I'm not going to come back and play them unless you kill him off. Because I want my version of the character to die. And if Indiana Jones dies, I'm just going to... I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to go down either. So, yeah, I didn't think about that.
You know. But, no, I completely get where you're coming from. And I would agree with you, you know, that's... to commit one way or the other. If you're going to go batshit crazy, go batshit crazy. Commit to it. Justify it at the end. Don't play this, I'm going to stay right in between batshit crazy and norm. I'm going to be right here in the middle, which is my daily life. I'm right there in the middle. But, you know, don't stay there. Find somewhere to go. Either make it crazy, over the top, or make it more realistic, you know, or justify it. At least justify it. Yeah. And that's where that movie's... I'll agree with you. That is where that movie has its shortcoming, definitely.
I mean, in all honesty, if I'd heard stories that they had lost a director and replaced the director mid-filming, then I would be like, oh yeah, well then that makes sense, because you've got 2 completely different themes and tones in place, and each director did their own thing. I could believe that 100%. I don't know if that's true, but if I heard that, yeah, I would believe it 100%.
Might help the movie a little bit.
Yeah. So give me another movie. What's another movie on your list? Pro, con, whatever.
Well, this one's kind of an obvious one, but...
Hey, obvious is fine.
I wasn't sure if we were going to do just good or bad, so... I'll bring up, since you brought up Friday the 13th, I'll bring up Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which I wanted you to. To me, it is an extremely solid film, through and through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nightmare on Elm Street sort of did the same thing as all the other films. You know, Part 2 was kind of frowned upon when it first came out. Fantastic film if you watch it today. It's a fantastic film. Part 3 was and still is revered to as one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street films. I'll put it up there. I will. I'll give it a decent title. Wes Craven's New Nightmare is probably one of my more favorite films, just because it's definitely a unique twist on things, which Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, was fantastic at doing things that were just way out there and making them work. They should have given him Jaws 4.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it here. Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. I mean, you know, we had just lost Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Mm-hmm. Freddy cleans house at the beginning of 4. You know, he's taken out all these kids that survived him. And then we get a final girl we were not expecting. We get Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice is still alive. Alice is still out there, probably whooping some ass. I've met her before, Lisa Wilcox. She's probably kicking ass in real life, too. She's cool as shit. But Dream Master took some of the best things out there with Dream Warriors and everything, and they put it back into the movie. You know, they're like, we can't do Dream Warriors again. We can't do the same formula.
Yeah.
So Freddy decided he needed more power again. He started taking souls again, like he did in Dream Master. You know, it worked. It worked for him in Dream Master. It might as well. Not Dream Master. It worked for him in Dream Warriors. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. It worked for him in Dream Warriors. Let's see if it works for us in Dream Master. Alice gets their abilities. He gets their souls. He thinks he's a match for her. Doesn't pan out the way that he hopes.
Yeah.
That movie made Freddy scary again. You know, he kind of started getting the one-liners and everything.
But
in Dream Wars.
The way he did the one-liners though in 4, I think that's where it was a nice, like he had not gone too far off into left field into the jokey world. His one-liners and his jokes felt vicious, good, you know, solid burns, but vicious.
Yeah, and even in part 3, he had the one-liners, but some of them just felt kind of goofy in part 3. But something about part 4 just worked really well.
Like they honed it from 3.
Yeah,
like trying it, and then it was just like, no, we got this.
And it's honestly got some of the more creative. I mean, they've always done creative deaths in it, you know. But one of my favorite deaths in it is I'm terrible with names in movies, but the one girl has asthma in the movie. I can't think of her name. It's gonna kill me.
Shit. It's one of the best. Come on. I know her name. Damn it. It's gonna drive me nuts.
It's gonna drive me nuts too. I'm just trying to.
And look, I know it might not be PC, but she has one of the best scenes in the movie where some prick in high school, I don't know why I find it so funny. I guess it's just so dumb and ignorant, but she's taking a hit of her, I know it's not called an asthma thing. What are they called?
Inhaler,
there you go. And guy's like, hey, baby, you're sucking on the wrong nozzle. It's the stupidest, most ignorant thing, but I always laugh at the ignorance of it all.
Well, and her the death in the movie, you know, they kind of went back to an aspect of the original film. In the original film, Freddy made it look like, you know, Nancy's friends were murdered. You know, the one friend was murdered by her boyfriend. Tina was murdered by her boyfriend, and then he kills himself in jail. And then Glenn's death is just and then Glenn's death is just random, you know, just out there. This movie kind of brought that back. He walks up to her when she's falling asleep in class. Alice is asleep in class.
Mm-hmm.
And you look up and Freddy's peeling an apple with his glove. And he looks at her and he walks up to her. He takes her glasses off. He smiles at her and he goes, "Wanna suck face?" And he picks her up and he sucks her face and he sucks all the air out of her and she deflates like a balloon. And then in the real world, she has an asthma attack and she dies. That's just, man, it's perfect.
It works.
And, you know, I love all of the deaths in it. You know, it also has the death where the girl's afraid of bugs. And he turns her into a cockroach. And that scene, to some people still today, she's pushing the weights up and he's basically spotting her and she's like, "I'm not afraid of you." And he's like, "No pain, no gain." And he pushes down and just keeps pushing. And her arms snap. And then they fall off and she's got little roach mandibles. And she's in a fucking roach hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And even the one-liner, "You can check in, but you can't check out." And then he squeezes it. Like, it's perfect. It's just, oh, God. Everything about it, I love everything about it.
Yeah, none of his one-liners that I can think of, not one in that movie, felt like an eye roller, like one of those that you're like, oh, okay, you took it a step too far. Everything felt on point and solid with him.
Yeah, and like the pizza scene too. I love the pizza scene where Alice is, basically just terrified that she's going to work at this diner her whole life, and then she's dreaming and Freddy's there with her, and the waitress is an older version of her. And they've got the little meatballs that have the faces on them. Freddy eats one, and it's just perfect. Plus, you get to see Robert Englund in a nurse's outfit, which that on its own is worth the watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember, because it's been a minute. If I remember right, I think, yeah. It just took me a minute to think about Alice's boyfriend. He gets into an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, that they put him under anesthesia, and even this line I love. They wipe the doctor's face, and when they uncover his face, it's Freddy. And he's like, "You're Freddy Krueger," and Freddy's like, "Well, it ain't Dr. Seuss." It's a cheesy line, but the way that he delivers it is just fantastic. And let's be honest, and I'll argue this till I'm blue in the face. It's Robert Englund's performance. That is what made all of these movies. And you can't be without it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me it's one of those entries that's just, it works because they put everything on point. And I won't talk about this too much because I don't want to take away from it too much. That was one of the problems with Nightmare on Elm Street 5. The producers for 4 sort of just let them do their thing. They didn't make a ton of changes to things.
Mm-hmm.
When 5 came out, when Dream Child came out, they were trying to push the movie out. They were trying to get things done. There was a lot of censorship on a lot of things, and it really took away from the movie. It's just like the scene when was it Dan, you said, right?
Yeah.
When he's riding the motorcycle, and the motorcycle starts to like merge with his body.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was originally going to be a lot longer and a lot more brutal.
Yeah. Didn't they cut down on Greta and her getting her guts fed to her?
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard that one got cut down as well.
Mm-hmm. And that really took away from it. They kind of killed it because they were really wanting to get this movie out. They were wanting to make all these changes. And you can tell at the end of it that they were just trying to get stuff out. It was sort of just a money grab. And then, we obviously get Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, and say what you will about it, it's one of those movies that it's not good, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would just have to say Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is perfection. I absolutely love it.
Fair enough.
But do you have any other thoughts on that before we'll name another one here?
No, I mean, you said it quite succinctly. It's a solid entry. And if you've watched my newest video, Vecna versus Freddy Krueger, on the Joe Blow Face Off channel, you'll notice I used quite a few clips from that, especially audio clips, because it was perfection. It worked in so many ways to add to that video.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my undecided category.
Okay.
Because I got a few in here that I feel like would be worth talking about as a love it or don't. All right, I got one. Because I don't know how people feel about this one. I remember when I watched it the first time, I was like, I didn't know how I felt. I watched it the second time. I don't know if I don't hate it, but it's not my favorite.
Okay.
Scream 4. I don't. It's a hard thing for me to, because I guess I liked what they were attempting to do. They were still following what I feel like is the proper formula for Scream, which is to take whatever's popular at the time and turn it on its head. So part 1 did horror movies in general, or the horror movie tropes. Part 2 did the sequel tropes. 3 tried to do the trilogy tropes and dropped the ball on that, if you ask me. And then part 4 is trying to look at the reboot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. I get what they're doing, but it feels like there's something missing. You know, there's something missing to the formula, and I can't quite put my finger on it. And even the killer's motives do kind of feel like they fit into the culture at the time that they were talking about it. Hell, probably even more so today. But I don't know. There's something missing.
So, I honestly, I don't think any Scream will ever have the magic that the first 2 had. I do believe that completely. You know, when the first 2 were released, it was still very fresh. Nothing like that had happened before. I think, honestly, one of the reasons why 4 gets a lot of hate from people is, as ironically as it sounds, they're poking fun at reboots. A lot of people don't like reboots.
Right.
And I think people went in with that mindset because the movie is poking fun at that. You know, we're going to reboot it. We're going to reboot everything. And I think the people actually thought that this was going to just reboot the entire series. And I think that kind of put a sour taste in everybody's mouth when it was just kind of put out there. But I think a lot of people kind of forgot what Scream is. Scream pokes fun at that stuff. I honestly, the first time that I watched Scream 4, I didn't particularly care for it. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I thought the direction was good. Wes Craven directed it, and normally when he directs something, I at least like the way that the film was directed. I watched it not too long ago, and I actually got a lot more respect for it.
Yeah.
Now, after sitting and watching it again, and really thinking about the film. Again, I think it tried to do something. You know, Scream 3 was kind of just out there in left field.
Oh, yeah.
You know, somebody we never heard of, you know, doing this and this and this, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's
this one,
like the biggest letdown. It should have been someone we knew, you know, the whole time.
And, you know, I do think, I think Scream 4 was good about setting up, you know, Sydney has other family. And the whole, I don't want to live in the shadow of this survivor. I want to be the new final girl. Having somebody be the villain because they want to be the new final girl, I thought that was an interesting aspect. Yeah. I did. And I thought their performances were pretty good in it. Pretty solid. There were characters that I really did like.
Yeah.
I would probably be with you on it, though. I would probably still be on the fence about it because there's a lot that I really love about it. But at the same time, it's, I don't know, it feels like a Scream movie, but it doesn't feel like it could ever live up to the originals. And I understand that, you know. The newest Scream that came out, you know, they took some chances. They did some things that maybe should have happened in Scream 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, spoiler alert again, this episode's full of spoilers. You know, Dewey dies in the latest Scream film.
Yeah.
But the Dewey that dies in this film doesn't have anything going for him. Like, he's sort of become just a burnout. And it, you know, to see that version of Dewey die is one thing. But if they would have killed him in 4 when he was, you know, top dog in town still, he was, you know, I think he was the chief of the police at that point.
Yeah.
In 4. If that would have happened then, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been, it would have pissed a lot of people off, but I think that would have been a really interesting thing to kind of tie that movie in as something connected to the originals, but also its new thing. Because they talked about reboots and remakes, and, you know, no better way to reboot a series than to kill the old characters.
Mm-hmm. And maybe get it right this time, you know,
Yeah.
since the guys didn't do it the last time.
It's just, you know, I've been hearing a lot of people want Matthew Lillard to come back. They want his character to somehow have survived, and after all these years, be responsible for this.
I don't see how.
I don't. He'd be pretty rough. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would love to see something like that. You know, if they did it right, that's the thing for me. If it's done right, you could swing it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it just depends. You know, but yeah, no, I don't know. I'm on the fence there with Scream 4. It's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's not the most solid Scream film I've ever seen.
I think your point about Dewey dying might actually be one of the key missing elements, because there was nothing about the film that made it seem like it was going above and beyond what had come before it. That none of the original characters were safe, because we get to the end and it's like, well, of course, they've survived yet again. 4 fucking times. How does that happen? You know, a trilogy, you know, gets a little questionable, but we're just like, all right, well, we'll give it to them. They're our heroes. But then you're really pushing it once you get into the 4 territories, because how much longer can you go through this and survive each and every time? It gets a little ludicrous.
Yeah, and I think too, if they would have done it in 4, I think it would have had more meaning, especially because it was Sydney's niece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her own family killed one of, you know, I mean, it was bad enough that her own family was trying to kill her, but if they would have actually succeeded in killing one of her closest friends,
Yeah.
I think that would have been a lot more emotional for the fans.
Sure.
It would have really pulled on the heartstrings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know?
We're not film writers. We just watch them. You got another one?
No. Let's talk about Hellraiser 4, because I'm kind of on the fence with that one too. You know, I love the Hellraiser films, but how many times are we going to open the box?
Yeah.
How many times is this stuff going to happen?
But at least it's not the same person every time, so
True.
I guess
True.
that's a fair point, that other people don't know what it is.
And as bad as it sounds, after the first Hellraiser, maybe the first 2, I get a little cloudy on them,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, just because they're not as memorable as I would like to say they are.
No, I get that.
Is 4 a decent movie? Yes, it's decent. All of the Hellraisers from the original series, not the remakes, not the reboots, the originals, they all have something interesting that they offer. You know, Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead, he stayed true to all of the original films. But yeah, aside from the first 2, I don't have much to say about them. And to me, that's kind of bad. That, I don't know, you would think that a movie would be more memorable, especially sequels. But, so it's Hellraiser Bloodline. What would you have to say about that, do you think?
Oh, that was on my con list because I remember watching it not that long ago and saying, "What were you thinking?" Because at that time, horror films were trying to figure out, well, where do we go from here? Let's go to space. And that's also why I put Leprechaun 4 on this list as well, because Leprechaun in space. Why is everything having to go to space? So Hellraiser decided, hey, let's go to space. Why not? Why? It's an interesting concept to be sure, but you didn't do anything interesting with it.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it. I could even speak to Hellraiser 3 a little bit. I know you said you're a little fuzzy on it. I like it to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched it quite a bit, and that might have something to do with it, just some sort of nostalgia, because I watched it a lot. It was probably the one that I probably watched the most because it was on cable.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that movie's fault, like I appreciate where it was trying to go, trying to still work off of the, I guess, plot thread they left at the end of part 2, where this, the guy who'd become Pinhead, his soul had been freed, and now Pinhead and he are two separate entities. It's an interesting concept, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. But the problem is that they turn Pinhead into this character that just seems like he's in the shadows. He's a deal maker. He won't harm you unless you're the one that opened the box, and like there are rules. And then they turned him into yet another slasher, which he's never been.
Yeah.
Or they were trying to attempt that, and it's out of character for him, Interesting set pieces that they did where he and his new Cenobites are going on a rampage throughout a city. Cool visuals, cool idea. But it just doesn't work in context to who Pinhead has always been up to that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little off character. And then I guess they try to go back to that in part 4, and there's a good idea there, and there's a reason that the director left, and it's credited to Alan Smithy, which, if any of you out there are unfamiliar, that's a pseudonym given to a director who wants their name off the film. So if you see a movie said directed by Alan Smithy, $10 a movie went through production hell, and the director said, keep my name off this garbage.
Yeah. I kind of look at Hellraiser like I look at Scream. Nothing will capture the magic of the original, I would say 2 in this case. Pinhead to me has always been sort of like, I always looked at him like he was some kind of like the king of the Cenobites. Like this was his world. He was the ruler. He's going to show you, as he always says, we have such sights to show you. He's always been, he's got a god complex, let's just put it that way. And then to just turn him into, I'm going to get as many bodies as I can. I'm going to pull a Michael Myers, a Jason, a Freddy. I'm just going to get as many bodies as I can. That doesn't work for him.
Mm-hmm.
And in all honesty, if we're talking about movies that aren't solid entries, there's a lot of Hellraiser films, as bad as it sounds, they're good for what they are, but they're not solid entries.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, part 4 of that, yeah, I'm just going to probably put that on my probably not list.
Yeah, no, I did not, I can't defend it. It's a hard watch, I'd say. Interesting concepts, just poorly executed.
Yeah. So what is another, since we've talked about some stinkers here, what's another good one that you would say you have on your list or popped into your head?
I've got this one on the list, but I don't think I'm going to go into great detail about it because I kind of did last week. Bride of Chucky to me is probably one of the best, if not the best Chucky film, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it has a lot to do with, because I know this is probably something that turns people off, the fact that it becomes a bit more self-aware, but to me, I kind of dig that at times, because I feel like they become self-aware enough and they don't go too far beyond that. It's just like, we're going to give you a wink and a nod here and there, but we're still going to teeter on this horror, but we're going to play with it and kind of become this dark comedy, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Something completely out of left field. I didn't expect that, and I felt like it turned out to be a fantastic idea to do. So, but I went into that a lot last week, I'm sure. So, unless you've got anything to add to it.
The only thing that I would add to it is this. The thing that I have always loved about Chucky, the Child's Play movies, everything, is a lot of movies try to stay serious their whole run through. And I think when they created Chucky, it was one of those things. The first movie, yes, Chucky is just terrifying. Second movie, Chucky's still pretty terrifying. Third, you know, as you gradually get through the films, like you said, you kind of get that dark comedy aspect of it. And I am so grateful that they did that, because I honestly feel like this film series needed to have a little bit of that goofiness to it, that comedy to it. And I think they executed it extremely well.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be the only thing that I could really add to it.
All right.
I have a movie. There's a ton of these movies. Tremors 4.
That was on my list. Undecided list, though.
So that one is basically a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think it's fantastic. It's one of those movies. Do I think it's a good movie? Yes and no. I think it's one of those movies that it's so bad it's good.
Fair enough.
You know, it's we've had the same guy in all the Tremors movies.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of the actor's name. I'm terrible with
Michael
names.
Gross.
Yes, he's been on all of them. You know, he's a gun-toting guy who just blows everything away. Go to Tremors 4, he's kind of a dainty little delicate man.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the take on the character. He's dainty, he's kind of delicate, I don't know about firearms, but then you get to the end of the movie and you realize that the family's going to become what they are in these present movies.
Mm-hmm.
I have always loved that about it. It's over the top, but Tremors is always over the top.
Yeah.
And to me, I would put it as a solid entry. I would. If nothing else, just for the fact that it's so over the top and it takes a character that everybody has really grown to love. He makes the Tremors movies.
Sure,
he does.
yeah.
They take that character and they kind of change him around, but you still like him. He's still a likable character. So I gotta give it to it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. And I've watched all of the Tremor movies except for the latest one that come out.
Okay, yeah.
And even after all this time, if you just want a movie to watch and you're like, this is so ridiculous, but I love it, those are the movies for you. It's kind of like, some people watch Sharknado and they watch all of those. This is Sharknado, except it's good.
No, I'll agree. The entire franchise is one of those that I wouldn't say they're all fantastic, but it's a fun franchise. I've watched every single one, and I've had fun with every single one. So I guess I kind of agree with you with 4. I've kind of felt if there was a weak entry, it was between 3 and 4.
Yeah.
But it's still not bad. You know what you're into. You know what you're getting. So you just kind of accept it. And having him there, Michael Gross is Burt Gummer or whatever his character's name was in the original.
It's Burt. I can't think of the last name, but yeah.
Well, in the was it Burt in part 4?
I think it was,
because his surname is Gummer, but I couldn't remember what his character name was in part 4.
I think they might have done a play on the name, maybe.
Gotcha. I felt like it was something very, like you said, kind of that dainty-ish.
It's Hiram. His name is Hiram Gummer.
Yep. There you go. But no, I think he makes that franchise, he makes it worth coming back to. He's all in for it. And if he was just phoning it in and he didn't seem like he was having fun, we'd all kind of get that vibe. And I don't think that would be as fun. But he just commits to being this lunatic who's out to kill the graboids. And I'm all for it, you know. I felt like the last 3 entries were solid.
Yeah. And to be honest, I could see where Part 4 would kind of be seen as like a weaker entry into the franchise. And I think a lot of that is because of the fact that they did something, again, every franchise does it, they did something kind of different with it.
Mm-hmm.
I do know, I kind of don't want to spoil it for you, but I kind of want to tell you because it's kind of fun. I know at the end of this last Tremors movie, he gets eaten by a graboid.
Mm-hmm.
And because he jumps in the way to save his son, and as it's getting ready to eat him, he turns to his son as he's flying through midair and he flips him the bird, and it eats him, and the graboid falls off a cliff. So he's presumed dead, but they kind of left the door open. But I mean, he's like 70 something now, I think.
Yeah,
he's getting up there.
It was a proper send-off, I thought. I don't want to see him come back magically from the dead. I felt like that was the way he'd want to go.
Yeah, and I appreciate the franchise as a whole for changing it up some. You know, they did the one film, I think it was in like Antarctica or something like that. And the graboid was a lot stronger because it could dig through the ice and everything. Like, At least they kept coming up with ideas, and I appreciate that from the franchise as a whole, that they continued to come up with ideas. They even had a TV series where the graboids kept changing form. You know, they were like graboids. I think one of the things they called it was like ass blasters or something. But they had all kinds of different ones. They in the series they had like ones that looked like plants and all kinds of different stuff. And I know Kevin Bacon's even talked about he wants to do he would like to do another Tremors project because he misses.
If he hadn't had a stick up
Tremors.
his ass about it so long, he could have come back at some point. But I've heard that he was embarrassed by it for a while and then started to realize, oh wait, this is actually a good thing. People love it.
And it's sad because his co-star just passed away too.
That would have been great to see the two of them together.
See the two of them? You know, on a random note, I heard a funny little conspiracy theory, well, a film theory, that the town from Footloose is the same town from Tremors, and the reason that they didn't want anybody to dance was because the Tremors had been sleeping for so long, the graboids had, and dancing would wake them back up. So at the end of the movie, when everybody dances, it wakes the Tremors up. That'd be a hilarious, like, I could see that on like a Tonight Show or something, like a comedy bit where it's like, we got to protect these people. There's graboids out there, and Kevin Bacon comes out and he's like, I think I got an idea, and then the Footloose music starts playing, and they're getting the graboids to come. We got to put that together. That would be hilarious. But yeah, Tremors, I would definitely, for what it is, I would put it on. I would put it on the positive side of things, I think, because I think it's a fun movie. I think it's just entertaining as hell. But what else you got for me? Good, bad?
All right, I'm going to go for another good one because this is a franchise I don't feel like we've talked about too much on this podcast. But I think this fourth entry, again, one of those entries trying to do something different, and I feel like it pays off in dividends. This would be Puppet Master 4. This was the movie in which they promised was initially supposed to be Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys, and that didn't happen. I'm still confused by that. Like, I swear to God, there was a poster made. They were talking about it on one of their video zones at the end of a VHS tape. Like, this is going to happen. And I'm like, yes, amazing. And then it became Dollman versus Demonic Toys. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to the Puppet Masters? I wanted to see them fight. Because that was supposed to be number 4. And then they reworked it to where they were fighting other demon puppets. But still, I wanted to see the other thing. But in any case, they took a chance. They went back to present day. The puppets are now good. So now there are heroes as opposed to our villains, which, in all fairness, you could say that in part 3, they were technically good then because they were fighting Nazis, and we're not necessarily going, oh God, don't kill the Nazis, stop. We're kind of on their side. But here, they're presented, like, we're kind of represented to them. We see them actually not just trying to protect their home. They don't kill the invaders in their home or whatever. Well, I think I'm getting that mistaken. That was part 5. But the demon puppets, yeah, they were the ones that come in this one. And then the two movies blend together. I honestly feel like they could have smashed them together and made one cohesive film. Just saying. But I'm sticking to 4. We see them actually fight other puppets or equal enemy sizes as opposed to just going around killing people. That was something different. That was something fun. The puppets seemed like they were exuding more personality, and we actually got to see them on their own, kind of functioning throughout the hotel, which again, something we hadn't really seen because it was always they were with Toulon or they were with someone or they're lurking in the shadows. Here they were actually hunting these other puppets, so we got to have scenes of them just kind of lurking about on the hunt, on the move, kind of bumping into one another, going, They can't talk, but still you're getting the gist. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I was looking forward to more Puppet Master movies like that. And then 4 and 5, like I said, are pretty much bookended together. Probably shot back to back. And after that ended, and it just seemed like that's where they were going. It was like, okay, this is going to be the adventures of the puppets going and doing other things, trying to be heroes or what have you. And I was down for it. And then come around to part 6, and they've gone completely off the rails into a narrative with new characters. We're like, what happened to this other guy? What's all this? It had promise. Part 4 created promise, and that's where I really fell in love with these characters. Like, I loved them already, but I was like, now I'm getting to see personalities with these characters, and I'm all in for this. So I really enjoy 4 and 5, but I'm sticking to 4 for the sake of this topic.
I've honestly, it's been a minute since I've seen the Puppet Master movies, but that's honestly one of those franchises I've honestly liked all of them. Like, I've never had an issue with any of them. And as you're talking about 4, like, it's coming back to me, but I do remember, seeing them interact and everything a lot more in it. And that was something that I really appreciated, because even though they're just puppets, you still want to know more about them.
Having some form of personality just makes you care for them more. So you don't want to see them get hurt. You don't want to see anything bad happen to them. And when they seem like they are kind of working together, they're not working separate from one another. This one's going over here to kill that person. This one's going over to kill that person. They're actually working together. They protect one another. So it almost seems like a family unit. Like, these are my brothers or my sister. Leave them alone, and we'll be good. And you kind of respect that.
Yeah.
So.
And on a random note, real quick. So they did end up doing a Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys.
I'm not talking about that piece of shit. I saw that.
I was gonna say,
no,
I wasn't
very
sure.
Aware. I don't talk about it. Fuck it. It's garbage.
Okay, 2000. It came out in 2004.
Made for TV sci-fi movie. Horrible.
Now, see, I don't remember seeing Demonic
That
Toys
was one of my I really enjoyed that one. I wouldn't say I liked it more than Puppet Master, but it was one that I really liked. But Doll Man versus the Demonic Toys, I know it's probably not high on anyone's list but mine, but I love it so much. There's nothing to it. Honestly, it's like probably about an hour and 7 minutes, so it's a very short movie. And half the movie is recapping events that happened in other movies. And then the last half is pretty much Doll Man hunting down the demonic toys. And They didn't bullshit anything. They kept it simple. They kept it short, and I respect that, and I'm all for it. So I don't hate it. It's actually one of my favorite things to watch every now and again.
Now, see, I will have to watch that then because I honestly don't think that I've seen it.
Last I saw it, it was on Tubi, so that would probably be a good place to start checking. But like I said, hour of your time at most. I mean, it's really not that long, but it's gives you everything you asked for. Unlike Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys, which they don't meet each other until the last 5 minutes of the movie, so you're stuck with 90 minutes or whatever other garbage was. God, I hated that movie so much. Anyway, what else you got? Anything?
Oh, goodness. You know, I was trying to think of some movies, but it sounds... There's not a ton of, like, Part 4s that I can think of. Most of the franchises that I've watched with Part 4s are usually pretty decent films. The only film series as a whole that kind of irritates me, and I guess I couldn't say just Part 4, and I guess you really couldn't consider it a full series. Whoever's making all these Amityville movies,
yeah,
they just need to stop. Whoever it is, they just need to stop. I just saw another thing about one. It's a Thanksgiving one.
Aren't they going to space
and it's
too?
Going to be off the rails.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They that might already be out. I don't know, but
Yeah.
just stop with them already.
We were just saying it earlier. What do they do when they get desperate? They go to space. Yeah,
Leave the space for the aliens, like, for real. Like, let's see, I've got one, and I know this is a movie that you really like, and again, it's been a long time since I've seen it, so my memory's kind of shot on it, but see what you think of it, because we just talked about this not too long ago. We talked about movies that would be good for kids to watch to kind of get them into horror. We talked about Critters.
Yeah.
There is a Critters 4. What would you say about Critters 4?
That is on my con list because it is a slog to watch.
Yeah?
If I did go through, so I can speak to this because it had been a while since I watched them, but they showed up on, I think, HBO Max, and I had recently purchased like digital copies of the first two, and I wanted to see 3 and 4 because it'd been a while. 3 isn't bad. It's an interesting take because they've kind of taken the idea and said, okay, but what if we put it into like an apartment building so it's confined, and we're trying to do something like that. I appreciate it. And then they promised the follow-up into space, and I'm okay with that, but there's just something about it. You could tell they were limiting themselves with the critter action. The characters were not all that appealing. A great cast of character actors, I should say. Again, Brad Dourif shows up. We had Angela Bassett in one of like her earliest roles. I think one of the main bad guys on the ship, or the captain of the ship, who just was an asshole. Anders Hove, I think is his name, is the actor's name. He played Radu in Subspecies. I think would be his most famous role.
Okay.
If there was one. I don't know, man. It was a hard watch. By the time I got done with it, I was just like, I'm bored to tears, man. And the plot just seemed all over the place. The fact that the other bounty hunter that Charlie was friends with, and we had kind of grown to know and trust in the other movies, had suddenly turned to a bad guy, felt like a heel turn I did not expect in the worst possible way. It just felt wrong. So, yeah, no, it's on my con list. I didn't care for it at all, and I still don't.
That's fair. Now I have to ask about one because you mentioned it earlier. Because I want to see your facial expression. I want to hear what you say about this one. Leprechaun 4.
No, I'm not Not going to give that one the satisfaction either. That was just, where do we go? Space.
Oh.
And then where do they go after that? The hood. I mean, literally.
You know, the only thing that every Leprechaun movie has in it that's kind of enjoyable, it seems like there's at least like one or two deaths that are really cool. I'll give it that. Other than that, they just go off the rails.
Hey, Warwick's having fun, so I'll give him credit there for enjoying what he's doing. But they're hard to get through sometimes. So
yeah. Well, and I think it's funny. Robert Englund said one time. He said, you know, if some of these studios had it their way, he said, you'd be seeing Freddy Krueger versus the Leprechaun in a mud wrestling match. You'd see those movies if the studios had it their way.
I mean, we want to see things like that, but, you know, I know it's not feasible half the time. If they really wanted to, if they really, really, really wanted to make these things happen, stop being greedy, they could make it happen. They just don't want to because everybody wants this amount of money or they don't want to pay for this. And they could cut deals if they wanted to really bad. But we won't get into that.
Well, and just to, I know not to get into that completely, but just to say real quick, you know, they seem to not realize if they put a little bit of extra money out there at first, they're going to get a return because the fans will go in droves to see certain things happen. Just putting that out there. I mean, look how well these new Halloween films have been doing.
It'll happen. You got fans.
Now, we've been on for a little while here, so before we do any of our closing stuff, what would you say, fourth movie wise? We'll do fourth movies here, obviously. What would you say would be a fourth film in a franchise that really just went above what your expectations were?
I might actually just have to go back and say Bride of Chucky. Because where Friday the 13th was just a solid entry, it still was kind of reminiscent of the same beats. I respect Nightmare on Elm Street 4 for pretty much presenting what I would consider almost the definitive Freddy. And everything that he was doing, the story was tight, solid. I appreciated it. Halloween 4, kind of a return to formula in a way. I felt like the guy who played Michael Myers in that, George P. Wilbur, was a solid choice. He did kind of Nick Castle's follow through. You know, he wasn't just lumbering around. He felt like he was, you know, honed in on a mission, and that's what he was trying to do. But Bride of Chucky just does. It continues the story and reinvents its genre at the same time. And it's entertaining from end to end, just a solid entry through and through. And I cannot deny that, in my opinion.
And I would agree with you on that. You know, I hadn't given the Chucky movies a watch in a long time. And I'll be honest, we scheduled the show to come out, so it's up for us to listen to before it posts up. So I started listening to it the day before it got posted up because I wanted to hear it. And I got a little busy with some stuff, so I finished on the day that it published. And I was listening to it while I was doing a little bit of housework. And I'm sitting there listening to you and Trina talk. And I'm like, man, I never really looked at it that way. And by the time I got done with the episode, I really sat down and I thought about the whole franchise as a whole. And I was like, God, they're so right about it. So, from a whole new standpoint, yes, I have to agree with you there. That is a solid entry. And you guys helped me realize that, because I liked the movie for what it was, but then, like, sitting there and listening to you guys and realizing Chucky's been going on all these years, and yeah, that was a solid ass entry to that entire film series. And For me, and yes, it's because I'm the Nightmare on Elm Street guy. I gotta say, for part 4, that really helped me a lot, because you got to think, part 4 come out. This is after Nancy got killed. Everybody expected Nancy to be the ultimate final girl of Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, Nancy. Everybody would love to see Nancy fight Freddy till the end of time. And I go into this film and I'm like, man, what are we gonna do without Nancy? I know she wasn't in part 2, but part 2 was kind of its own thing. But what are we gonna do without her now? And we meet Alice, and Alice is kind of innocent and seems kind of closed off. And then at the end of the film, you're like, Jesus, like Alice is a badass. Okay. And that movie went above and beyond what I thought it was going to be, because I was really nervous when I first watched it, because I love all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, but it was just, again, one of those things where my whole mindset was Nancy, Freddy, Nancy, Freddy, Nancy, Freddy. But when I got that out of my mind, like, it's not just about Nancy and Freddy. That movie became so much better to me. So, yeah, I'll definitely give that props. And I would agree with you on the other ones that you mentioned as well. And I will give another shout out to the 4th Tremors movie.
Yeah.
It's fun. That's all I can say about it. It's a fun movie. Now, this all being said about movies that we really enjoyed, what would be a movie that you were really excited for part 4, but part 4 just let you down?
Well, you know what? I think I will have to... This is one I think I mentioned last week. And go into great detail, but I'll go into detail now. Texas Chainsaw 4, simply because upon seeing the trailer for it initially, and I don't even remember what I was trying to watch, because I think it all came out with Miramax or that whole connect. I don't know. I don't remember who distributed. It's one of those, independent
something like that,
distributors at the time in the 90s. But I had seen this trailer, and it was the original concept trailer. Before it became Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, it was called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was something about this trailer that sparked interest. And I had never seen Texas Chainsaw before seeing that trailer. And it just intrigued me enough to say, you know what, it's time to go watch this franchise. I remember seeing them on the shelves. I know the cases, or at least 2 and 3 were always the cases I remembered the most, seeing on the video store shelves. But I made a beeline. I was like, I'm going to go watch these movies. And then when that movie comes out, I can watch that too. And so I had built up this, because I'd watched all these movies because I wanted to see this new one and really kind of think there was going to be a through line with the narrative. And boy, oh boy, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but there was nothing about this movie. It felt like a retread of the first one while adding elements that just did not make any sense. Matthew McConaughey is off the rails. And if anything, I guess you could give him credit for just being a lunatic for 90 minutes. But it's just, oh my God, I don't even know what the hell to say about it. It's so out there in such a way that I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what they did to Leatherface, I didn't even know what to say. Like, it was just like, what? You know? It was just such a drastic shift and change for the character. And some people might say, well, he dressed up in women's clothes in the first one. Okay, but not like that. You know, he put on a wig and a face, and that was about as far as it went. Maybe an apron in the kitchen or an old lady's wig, but not like that. He didn't seem deformed at all. He just seemed a little slow in the head. I don't know. It was weird.
I almost forgot about that until you just mentioned it. But yeah, I would probably have to be right there with you on that. Because I do remember watching that. Because I watched that at my uncle's one time. we watched it together, and he and I both were like, "What
Yeah.
did we just watch?" Yeah, I would probably give it that, and again, I'll mention Hellraiser one more time. I could do without some of the sequels
Yeah.
that come with that one, but yeah, oh man, now all I can do is picture Leatherface
Screaming at
drag.
the table.
You know, it's hilarious because we went to a haunted trail a few years ago, and they had a Leatherface that was dressed like that, and I motorboated Leatherface. So, not one of my proud moments, but it was fun.
Just for the sake of our audience, I've got no problem with the transvestite Leatherface, but explain it up front first, or at least prepare me that that's going to be the Leatherface we get the entire time, or something like that. Don't shift it halfway through, because he starts off as sort of kind of regular Leatherface and then turns into that, and you're like, oh, I missed it. No explanation whatsoever, just an eccentricity of the character, I guess. Weird.
Yeah, it's just it's very out of character, and that is a problem with any film, any sequel or anything. If they're out of character, then you're like, wait a minute.
Much
now.
like Leatherface was in Leatherface, the movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
Way out of character.
Yeah. That, and it's even like that with any kind of movie or series. It'd be like if we were watching The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob Briggs come out and didn't tell any facts about the movies. Darcy told all the facts about the movies, and Joe Bob just sat there and nodded. Like, we would be like, did something happen? Which I've been seeing some random stuff about The Last Drive-In lately. I know Halloween is closer than people think.
October 21st, Halloween special featuring.
That's right.
Featuring, to my knowledge, unless she's showing up some other time, but featuring Elvira, from what I hear.
And I think the movie that they're going to be showing, it's celebrating an anniversary, if I remember correct.
To something about it, and they didn't go into great detail, but I don't know. I'm curious, like what they could be showing.
Yeah.
But hell, just having Joe Bob and Elvira on the same show with Darcy. Oh, and Darcy do her cosplay as Elvira. Holy shit! Oh yeah,
that would be great. And Elvira's been getting some love from Shudder. She did her 40th anniversary special on there, and I don't know how true it is, but I've been hearing some whispers and some rumors that they would like to do a limited series.
Bring her back.
I still think it would be fun. Somebody made a good point. They said that they should do one final Elvira movie where Elvira has a long lost sister who's a witch. And I don't know why people keep picking who it is, but they said it would be hilarious if Elvira and Dolly Parton were witch sisters.
That would be hilarious.
And I thought about it, and I'm like, that would actually be pretty cool to see. Like, just something about it would be pretty cool to see. Plus, I'm sorry, but Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, that movie has one of the best lines in movie history. She's walking under the theater sign, and a letter falls and hits her on the head. And the guy climbs down the ladder, and he looks at her, and he goes, "How's your head?" And she goes, "I haven't had any complaints." And he goes, "What?" And she goes, "What?" One of my favorite movie lines ever.
I love stuff like that. Just those little subtle, Oh,
and she's got plenty of them. She is, and Cassandra Peterson, for people who don't know, Cassandra Peterson is one of the sweetest people to ever meet.
I gotta meet her.
And yeah, I'm still a little sad. When we met her, we were gonna do a photo op with her, and I said no, we won't do it this day because we got there too late to actually be able to do it anyways. But if we would have made it early enough, she was in full Elvira makeup for one day only to do photos, and I missed it. And I had an awkward exchange with her. It was awkward to me. She was sweet and everything, but it was awkward to me because I was talking to her about her career, and I said, you know, I've seen some articles about you possibly working on another movie. And keep in mind, Elvira kind of skyrocketed me through puberty. She kind of helped me get through puberty. I found Elvira at a very pivotal age. And I'm sitting there, and I'm having her sign this picture of her sprawled out in a bikini. And I'm asking her these questions, and she goes, yeah, between that and writing my memoirs, I've been very busy. And I'm like, wait a minute, writing your memoirs? No, you're not supposed to be writing your memoirs. That's something an old woman does or an old man does. And you're not old. You're Elvira. You're timeless. And then I kind of felt like I was robbing the grave a little bit, but she's only in her 70s.
It still
people.
looks good.
I'll tell you, when she gets in full Elvira makeup, it doesn't seem like she's aged a day. And it just phenomenal. But here I am rambling on. I mean, that's what we do here. But here I am gushing and rambling. If you all get the chance to meet her. The episode I did with my wife, we talked about Horror Hound. I've talked about Horror Hound a lot. She goes there quite a bit. I'd love to go to another convention with you, Steven. We've gone to the one. I know the missus was showing me there's a convention in Kentucky. It's about 3 hours and some odd minutes away from me, and it's about 3 hours and some odd minutes away from you guys. And I thought for a minute, I was like, you know, if we could figure it out, maybe a possibility. Maybe not this year, maybe not, but at some point, that could be fun. But I know this year they're going to have quite a few people there. They're going to have Robert Englund there. They're going to have Kane Hodder. I'd have to look through the list again. They had all kinds of people at this place. And I need to meet Joe Bob. I have not met. I know you got to meet him. I haven't gotten to meet him, and I would love to meet him. I saw how small you looked next to him. I can only imagine how small I'm going to look next to him. He could probably put me in a car seat. How large of a man he is just mind-blowing. But to all the ramblers out there, we got, I just want to say I hope you guys are glad we're back. We have completed our quest for now. We'll get back into them whenever we need to, but that's all I got right now, Steven. If you have anything else, go ahead. If not, you can tell the people where to find us.
So, Ramblers, let us know how you feel about fourth entries in a horror franchise. Do you have ones you love that we didn't mention? Do you have ones you hate that we didn't mention? Let us know on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. If you got more to say and a tweet just won't cut it, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. We'll read it out on the show sometime. And if you love social media groups, you can follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. You can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images when we remember to post, and we try to do as well as we can. If you want to say nice things about the show, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us that beautiful 5-star review that helps the show grow, and you get to express your feelings and help the show grow at the same time. You can also do that very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined. And I don't know if you people know this, maybe I haven't mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. If you're on Spotify, we do have questions we ask on a weekly basis. So you can answer those questions there on the Spotify app. Right there, you just scroll down on the episode and whatever I've posted. Sometimes there's polls and they're simple as yes or no, or it's a question, hey, what do you think? And it's probably the question that I ask you just up at the top that you could answer on Twitter. You could do it on Spotify as well. Do that. Check them out.
And we will shout you out on the show if you give us answers, because we love to shout people out. We love to shout out their tags and everything. We give
and
credit
shout out
where it's
to
due,
any
guys.
new listeners. I know we've gotten quite a few new followers on Twitter. So if you're new to the show, welcome. We love talking and hearing from all of you. So please engage. we'll engage back.
We are a community.
Most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search Horror Ramblings on the preferred podcasting platform. We should be everywhere, but if we're not, we're working on it. And if nothing else, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.